So at this point in time, each chamber can only act on legislation which originated in the other chamber. The issues being followed by the VSCPA are looking really good. Of course, tax conformity is already law. Governor McAuliffe signed the House version of the tax conformity bill on February 5th. This year, the tax conformity legislation deals specifically with extending the date for the enhanced earned income tax credit. The VSCPA introduced two different pieces of legislation this year. The first deals with the private investigator exception for CPAs. We also had companion bills dealing with export incentives for interest-charged domestic international sales corporations, also known as IC-DISCs. The fourth issue that the VSCPA took a position on this year deals with patent infringement and limiting the ability of patent holding companies to file bad faith patent infringement suits against Virginia companies. These bills were slightly more controversial, but they have moved through their chambers of origin and are getting ready to be heard in the opposite chamber. There will probably be a conference process on these bills because the Senate and House bills are no longer identical to each other, but we expect those to be resolved and for the bills to proceed. So there's also been a few additional items that the VSCPA has been following this year, although we haven't taken formal positions on these issues. The first deals with repeal of the debit card mandate for tax refunds. And those bills, surprisingly, have proceeded nicely through both the House and the Senate. So it's looking like we will see a repeal of the debit card mandate for tax refunds. It's just a matter of whether debit cards will continue to be an option or whether they'll entirely disappear. Lastly, we've followed the issue of tax reform very closely. Heading into the legislative session, there were several proposals that dealt with some form of tax on services and tax on professional services. The VSCPA worked very hard to try and keep these issues out of the legislative session this year. I'm happy to report that all of the legislation that had some form of tax reform, specifically these items, have either been tabled for the year or continued into 2015.